Hello, please. There it is. Okay. Right, yeah. My procedural terrain altitude. God, my dog. Moxie. It's okay. Alright, so day, what, like 4 or 3 or 4 of working on the altitude blending. Still have not been able to come to the right answer. Oh my god. Guys, stop. Oh my god, Moxie, please stop. Alright, where did I leave off? Right, yeah, my chunks are still not blended well. And as a matter of fact, they are offset quite a bit. And so I guess what I found out, what have I found out? I found out a lot of different ways to do this same thing, the same wrong answer, which is kind of surprising. Because I changed the math around, and I end up getting to the same answers that are incorrect. But what I've learned is that if we don't take into account the... Well, what was I doing? It's something like if I don't take into account the corner chunk altitude, then the chunks at least line up at a very minimal location on their edges in the cardinal directions. But when I start adding in the ordinal chunk altitude, that's when it starts diverging. I guess that's what I've learned. And I just have to kind of stare at this for a second to remember what I was doing. Yes, there's the lerp between the altitude, which feels correct. But I'm wondering if I shouldn't just lerp with one value, I should lerp with 2 values. The 2 values being distance from the vert in question to its center, its chunk's center, and the distance from the vert in question to the neighbor that we're considering. And then we should lerp between those values. And so this is the alpha for vert distance to neighbor chunk. Okay, and we get alpha here, so I kind of want maybe 2 values here. And we can either lerp or we can just multiply because it's going to be from 0. And I think that's what I was doing here, vert altitude modifier and vert altitude modifier. And then combining these together. Moxie, please stop. Bad. Okay, and so we take the 1 minus of this alpha, which is the distance to neighbor chunk divided by max dist to chunk. And when I did, let me change this to chunk size real quick, because I think that's what I was doing that at least got the sides to match up somewhat. Okay, so let's rerun that real quick. Hello? What? What? You know how I was just talking about getting the same results, same incorrect results? Well, this is a new one, which is weird. I could have swore this is what I tried before. But what, doing max dist to chunk was... was what was working? Well, I say working, which is what I had before. Yeah, okay. So, you can see that those are clearly not lined up. And what I did do is I added the altitude on each chunk so I can click on it and see what the... This is actually... the altitude of each chunk is what the chunk's altitude is going to be at the very center. So like the very middle vert should have that altitude. And I do have an assertion for that has never gotten triggered, so that part is correct. And then essentially I just need to blend to each neighbor chunk's altitude. I can see here if I click on this one is 0.4, this one is 0.48, this one is 0.46, and they're kind of offset that way, right? So I am applying altitude to them. And this one is 0.37, and it's even lower. So 0.37, 0.4, 0.46, 0.48. And this one is like almost the same, 0.5. So 0.48, 0.5, and then 0.5 as well. Ooh, those seem to be way off for being both 0.5 and then 0.507. And then 0.48. It's kind of hard to see because there's a border right there as well. But yeah, that's where I'm at now. So, what did I have to? I'm doing all neighbor chunk locations, which is right. This is only I'm only considering the cardinal directions there, and if I change it to also consider the ordinal direction chunks, neighbor chunks. Let's see what the difference is there. I have a feeling this is going to be about the same as what I just saw. Yeah, so that's about the same. Or might be exactly the same, which is... This is what I mean by, like, I found many different ways to get the same wrong answer. But I guess so did Thomas Edison, so... I'll have a light bulb moment here shortly, I'm sure. And if I get rid of alphas over 1, so this would mean I'm only considering the chunks that are within the max distance, which is the distance between any given chunk. And that's what that outputs. And so you can see I get this really weird pattern. I thought this is where that's not where I was matching up very well. It's like, it's so close to being matched up, but the pattern obviously is not what I want. Yeah, and so it's like you can actually kind of see where it starts taking into account different ones. And that's when it's almost like a clamp, right? I'm almost clamping it by doing that. Is that what I want? I really want... Because I was thinking that I kind of only want, we should go over there. That can go away. I was kind of thinking that for any given vertex, I would only need to get the distance between the two closest chunks. And if I just added those two, I'll weight their altitudes by how far away I am from them, as well as the altitude for how far away I am from this one. I should probably average those two, but then add to this one. Is that what I should do? Have I done that before? Have I tried that before? Because what I have here that I'm not using is actually like the amount of altitude to apply for the vertex and the altitude. So what I want to do is like I kind of want to do something where I'll get the distance to the closest two and average them. Should I do that? Because I'm kind of already doing that. So what I can either do is, and these are kind of the same thing, I can do a lerp between, what do I want to call this? 0.26? Sure. That's the altitude of this chunk. So I can either do a lerp between the altitude of this chunk and the altitude of that chunk, and if I have a point here right in the middle, that would be 0.25. That's what I would get if I lerped that. Or what I can do is multiply to get me like an amount of this that I want. And so I could, this would be like a 0.5 of the total, because I divide by the total distance from the chunk. So from here to here, that's what that line is. And then that would give me 0.5, or it should. And so I would want 0.5 of this number if I'm right there. And that's really, the corner point should only be half of this and half of that, which is 0.25. So that would be 0.12 plus 0.13, which is 0.25. So that would be the same thing as lerping. That would be the same thing as lerping based on the distance. But if I lerped based on the distance, let's say I did distance to here as well. So, and this is actually what happens, right? So if I don't do alphas over 1, and my max distance is the distance to the chunk I'm considering, then I'm pretty sure this point also considers this chunk, which I wouldn't want it to, if it's on the edge. Or if it's in the very corner, rather. Same with this point here. This point should only be halfway between here and here. And I guess that would work for these side points because the max distance is shorter than the diagonals. So this would only be 12,000. This would be something like 18,000, whatever the square root distance of that is. And so if I'm so what would the lerp value be for this? It's going to be like 0.75 of that. 0.5, or it should be 0.25, 0.5, because it should be the opposite. Because we're doing the 1 minus alpha. Which is weird. If I use the 1 minus alpha, I shouldn't have anything over 1, because 1 minus is not going to help me there. Should that point have some of this chunk in it? Because it does. It is affecting that. And that's what I've been doing so far, and it doesn't seem to be working. Accidentally having that much. Now the point next to it should. What is the math here? What is the math here? Because if I wanted the point like right above the halfway point, I would want mostly these two, right? But then I would probably want a little bit of both of these. A tiny bit. I mean, yeah, I feel like I do kind of want to get if I get the average of all of the alpha chunk altitudes of all the nearby ones. Is the problem I'm also like getting the average of this for each one of those, and then I should apply that separately? I don't know that that's going to give me any different results, because the math, doing a lerp between neighbor chunk altitude and chunk altitude might already be doing that. Might already be weighting it like that. Because really what I'm trying to do here with these verts is like get some sort of weighted average based on its distance. And I can't seem to have pulled that off. Pull that off yet. Because what I would really want for the current chunk weight is like to get like how far away it is from the center of a square. What is that equation? Because it has to be, I have to like basically raycast. I'd be like, what's this distance? Divide by, if I wanted distance between a point here, like what's that distance? And then divide. This diagram looks horrible. So, equation for distance from center of square. Doesn't help. Calculate a vector from center of a square to edge based on radius. That's not quite what I'm looking for. Find the distance to the middle of a square. Equation for distance of point. Why can't I find something for this? Phoenix coming through with a fucking hot drop here. Is it just square root x minus center x squared plus... Oh, that's the, you're giving me a Pythagorean theorem, right? If I have a square, there's the center, I have a point that's like right here. I want to answer the question of how far away... I want specifically the ratio, right? I know the distance, right? I know the distance from here to here. And I know the size of the square. But I want to know, like, the ratio between that and how far it could... Like, how far is it in that direction from the edge, is I think what I want to answer. And so you're saying square root... x minus chunk x. Oh, I see, that's more difficult. Okay. Yeah, because you're just giving me a... I think you're just giving me a Pythagorean theorem here. Because you're giving me something like that. I think, with that equation. And I have no idea if this is even like the right way to do this. Again, I was working all yesterday on this problem, on the problem of blending altitudes between chunks, and did not seem to make any progress. If I search Unreal Engine, am I going to find something? I guess I said distance of point. Distance ratio? And I guess if I know... I can get that, I can get that. How do I get like a projection of this point, basically? I want to get like how far away from edge. How to calculate diagonal distance between corners of a square? No. The average distance from a square's center to its edges. There's a math stack exchange for find distance from center of a rectangle to edge through a point. Ooh. It's for general rectangles. I mean, should work. Should work though. Is this it? Ah, this does look right. Suppose that there's a ray emitted from a center. Okay, this is slightly different, but it's related, and I think I may be able to... Yeah, it's like slightly different, but I may be able to change it around to what I need. Because really what I have is I have center and I have another point. To edge through a point, is this it? That looks closer to what I want. Center rectangle has xy coordinate of 0, 0. Has width 2 times x and height 2 times y. Huh? Oh, okay, so if it's a... I don't know what this number 2 is saying. That sounds like it's just describing a square. Split the algorithm into quadrants. All you have to do is identify the xy coordinates of the intersection. Yeah, how do I do that? God damn, this is still so complicated to understand. And again, I don't even know if this is the piece of information I need. I think it sounds reasonable, right? Because if I'm picturing another MS Paint here. I'm picturing a kind of square, and remember, there are squares in each direction, right, with different altitudes. And so I'm picturing like something where, right, a little bit further, I'm picturing like a heat map. Or, well, I guess it would be something like, it would be a square. Maybe I should fucking use squares. Right, where this represents like how much of the current chunks. These lines represent how much of the current chunk's altitude is taken into account. Right, and then at the very outskirts, only half of this chunk's altitude is taken into account. That's kind of what I'm picturing. So what is like, given a point, what's the equation to replicate that? And what I was doing was something like for each point, get the distance to, for each point, for each neighbor chunk, get the distance to the center of that chunk, and use that as the divisor for the ratio of how far it is, which only works for the verts that are on that line. You may be better off getting the equation for the line that passes through the points and using an equation for a line intersecting a square to get the intersections, then find the one you want. Line-square intersection is a more common problem. I hate math, man. Because really, if I just get distance to... Nah, it wouldn't be distance to closest edge. Because that would just be like going directly sideways. What was it? Equation for how far away a point is from... I just want a library with a perfect function called get what my drunk wants. And return it. And so what I'm reading is that like the equation is going to change based on like where the point is, which is really fucking annoying as well. But I mean, do I need that distance? So like if I'm getting a point here, I know that distance. I know that distance. I know that distance. And I can get the triangles for that. Yeah, I mean, there's just not an easy way to do that, is there? Dude, I'm gonna go through all this and it's not even gonna end up being useful. Thanks. Not useful at all. Find distance from center of a rectangle to edge through a point. Yeah, I mean, this is the closest question to what I am dealing with. Okay, and see what... See, I could... There's kind of two different ways to do this, right? I could just get that distance. Or that distance. Let me actually use my straight line tool here. I could get that distance. Or I could get that distance. Like what? I guess the former, the straight line one, would give me this square pattern, because it would just be, that's just distance to closest edge. And then what would I do for points on this line right here? Like, I would want the corner ones. And then I'm just trying to make sure that this is actually what I want before I embark on this journey to use these equations. And so I would use the total distance, divide by it to get essentially how far away from center this point is. And like a point right here, I would want that to give me, I would want that to be 0.5. Now what I would want for this point, for a point on the edge here, I don't exactly know. I guess, so let's treat this as like halfway. This point is halfway between the two chunks. We're just going to act like that, right? And so that would give me, would I want 0.5, half of this, if it's on that edge? Say this one is 0.46, let's say this one is 0.5, this is like 0.48, so 0.5 of that would be 0.47 is what I would want that dot to be at. I don't know what something like this would want to be at. It would need to be halfway between these two, but then also incorporate that. So halfway between 4.6 and 5 would be 0.48. Plus a little bit of 4.8. I mean, would it just be 0.48 because this is already 4.8? And this is why I'm trying to use the distance as like some sort of weighted sum, weighted average. Because what I've been doing that isn't working is just using this as the divisor. And it's not working. And I guess that makes sense if this is what I need to do, but I'm not fully convinced that's what I need to do. Jesus. They are the divisors for, let me go back and look at the algorithm. So I have an array of all the, so for each vert in a chunk, I get all the neighbors for that chunk. And then I use the distance for each chunk, the distance between chunks, as the divisor, where the numerator is the vertices distance to that chunk. And that would give me a number saying something like, how close to this chunk am I? And what is the maximum distance that I can be away from it? Which is, it would be like what I was showing like here, like, yeah, max distance would be this white line. I'm going to act like that's going to 2 centers. And then I use this point, I say, what's the distance between here and here? And then I divide them, and it would give me 0.5 is the number that I want. And then I want to take 0.5 and I lerp between these two values, which 0.5 between those two values is 0.47. So that's what my thought in my head was, but it's not working because each chunk is not blending together on the edges. They're all offset from each other. Their edges don't touch at all. And I think it's because I've tried a lot of different approaches where, like, if this number is over 1, i.e. I have a point over here and it's beyond the max distance, filter it out, which usually gives me some sort of weird pattern that like looks like this, like looks like some sort of flower, because you can see hard edges on where the vertices change from incorporating like this and this to incorporating this and this. So now, rather than having a max distance to chunk, like, I think I'll still want to use that, but then I also just want to have a weighted value for how much of this. Right, because I'll use this max and divide by this distance to get 0.5. And I'll take 0.5 multiplied by 0.46, which would equal 0.23. And then I want to add that to distance from edge, right? How much, and I would lerp between 0 and 0.5. Or 1 and 0.5. It would be 1 here, and it would be 0.5 here. I think is what I would want to do. Would it be 0.5 here, though? I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of the issue I'm dealing with. My god. You wrote tests for it too, Jesus. Didn't even get accepted as the answer. God, there's a lot of answers on here. Have you tried vert distance to center 1 divided by sum of distances from vert to all centers times center 1 value plus vert distance to center 2? I might have in a different way. Let me try to understand what you're saying here. Yeah, that's like you're doing like a weighted sum, right? If I'm not mistaken. Sum of distances from vert. I think I've done something like that in a different way. For, like, you see here where I have this weight sum and I'm adding the alpha, or in other words, the distance between. Alpha is really a representation of the ratio between the distance to the chunk, the vert distance to the chunk versus the max distance it can be, and then I add it all up into a weight sum, and then at the very end I divide by the weight sum. So maybe that's something similar to what you're saying, maybe it's not. And you know, I just did what came to the top of my head, so I don't actually know how to do like a weighted sum. And I mean, I think that's what I'm doing with this anyway, where I'm lerping between the two values based on the alpha. The alpha is I guess the distance. I guess with what you're saying, the distance would be different because it's the sum of distances from the vert to all centers. Now, for what you're saying, do you also take into account? Are you also doing the distance to the chunk that it resides in, or only the neighbor chunks? Because that's something I've been going back and forth on trying as well. Vert distance to center 1 divided by sum of let's say I had a sum of all distances. And you're saying times, what is center 1 value? Oh, the altitude value? Times, this at the bottom. Times neighbor chunk altitude. And so you're saying something like that. This is like a weighted value. And then I'll add all these. I need to flip the pair. Yeah, you're talking about doing a 1 minus. Or what are you talking about doing? When you say flip the parity, what do you mean? But with what you're saying, where would the 1 minus go? I don't know where a 1 minus would be. Because like this is what you're saying, right? Or is... Because you said sum of all distances. Sum of distances from vert to all centers. Or by sum of all distances, do you mean the alpha? Meaning the ratio between the distance to how far it could be. Because I could just add up the... I think you're probably talking about the alpha here. Or better, it is to use 1 divided by distance. Does that do the same thing? Okay. And so, when you said sum of all distances, do you literally just mean the sum of, like this? Vert distance to neighbor chunk? Or do you mean alpha? The actual distance, not alpha. So that's what the 1 divided by distance would be. And so sum of all distances, and I would have to do 2 loops here. So that, all right. But I think using alpha might make your code do the same thing. Yeah, so that's what I mean when I said I think I've done something similar to what you're saying. But I could try this, right? And so I have this weighted val, which is essentially I just need to plus equals. So this should really just be like Is this what you're talking about? Like if I just did that? Ignore all this other stuff. Ignore all that other stuff. What is this saying? Oh, it needs to be initialized, right? And then I don't need to put parentheses on any of that, do I? Do I have to wrap this like that? No, I don't. Okay. So I think this is what you're saying. But were you saying like when I do distance I should do 1 divided by distance? We'll try it with both. Fuck it. Send it. But do 1 divided by... Okay, yeah. Right there is right. Or right here. And the same when you're computing in the loop, so here as well. Or does it matter where that 1 is? Does that go at the beginning? Does it matter where that 1 is? I feel like it should go at the beginning. Send it. Send it. Oh my god, Phoenix, I'm gonna like buy you a beer. So see, it's crazy. I've found so many different ways to get like a very similar result. Look how similar it is to what I already had. Oh, okay. I need a 1 divided by here. Not there. Bad, Moxie. Still, same. It was the same thing, same result. Same thing. Didn't make a difference. I know, right? This is. I've literally been trying so many different ways to do this. Like I was spending my whole weekend basically trying, and it just gives me results like that where it's like. Either there's like a super wonky pattern drawn on the chunk, or they're just like offset from each other. And that's why I think like doing something like this, because I think what I did, the closest I got was something where like say this is the center, it was drawing a pattern like this, like that, on the chunk, but then like right here actually lined up on both the 2 chunks. That was like the closest I felt, and like where these lines were like sharp drop-offs downwards, and like this would be totally offset, and then it would just like slowly offset more and more from, you know, the few verts that were actually correct. And so when I changed it to like incorporating all of the chunks or something, it would then make this part pop back up off and be offset a little bit more. So I'm thinking that doing something like this might actually properly interpolate the values. But it's like, god damn, I didn't realize getting that information was going to be such a pain. Like, it says all you have to do is this thing that is proving very difficult to find out. This answer will assume that b divided by a is greater than y divided by x. What is that? What is that saying to me? Which means that line L will hit the right edge. The intersection point should be x. Where's that picture at? Would be x, comma x times b divided by a. Where x is what? X is the, it wouldn't be x. Doesn't seem right. Moxie, stop it. The upper right hand corner has coordinate of xy. Oh, okay, that's what x is then. God, the dogs outside my house are going nuts. What is happening out there? Just dogs barking at each other. What if I did project point in square to edge of square? Does that give me anything? This? That's... It's possible that the discontinuity is from the set of trunk neighbors suddenly changing when you go from one trunk to the other. So you are suddenly adding a dramatically different altitude to the interpolation at the boundary. I totally could be misunderstanding. I mean, in my head this makes sense, right? Like, for example, this point, I would want half of each. Because this is kind of just saying, like, this is the trunk's, like, average altitude or something, right? And then at this point, I would want, like, half of these two, and whatever amount from this. I just don't know what that amount is, right? If this point is halfway between these two, I need half of these two, which would be like 0.48, plus whatever. I guess it would be distance away. That's why I'm thinking about doing this. Plus whatever that is, divided by 2. And then that would give me that vertex's altitude. And if I do that for every single vertex, it should, in my mind, that should interpolate correctly. And it wouldn't matter what, you know, what each trunk's value is. This could be 0 and this could be 1. How do you choose the neighboring chunks for a vertex? Yeah, so I just have this function. Like, each chunk has a coordinate. And then I just, top is in the -y direction, top right is x plus 1, y minus 1. Right is x plus 1, y plus 0, so on and so forth. So that's pretty... I definitely have the correct neighbor chunks. And this is something that I've done before. And I kind of copied for this situation. So I do that, and then I was doing some things where it's like if alpha is greater than 1, meaning like if I have a point here, then like these two, you know, anything that it's too far from doesn't count. So I've done things like that as well. But it is a subsection, some set or subset of those trunks. Yeah, I guess my only thing left to try is something like this. This sounds... I see, I do think you only need to use the nearby ones to avoid the drop like you described. Yeah, that's what I thought too. And when I tried to use a subset of these chunks, that's where it would draw that weird pattern that I was talking about. So I obviously was not picking either enough or the right ones. Like, my initial thought was that I would only need, like, the two closest ones. Like, for this point, I would only need that chunk and that chunk. But when I tried that, it drew that pattern I was describing where it went like that. I think that showed up on stream here. Or potentially use all chunks, not just neighbors would work too. I mean, I shouldn't need any more than the neighbors, right? I shouldn't. Because, like, each chunk should, by the time I'm on this half of the chunk, all of the values from this chunk should be rendered out of it, or interpolated out of it, weighted out of it somehow, ideally. Like, I definitely don't need any values from this chunk over here. What is this person saying? It's using like an outside point, right? Project directional vector. This question is what I'm getting after, but there's very little but it's specifically talking about a projection. I don't think that this person understands that. They're saying there's no difference. I think there is. Given a square and an angle. At the given angle, okay. When you chose a smaller set of neighbors, I know it introduced the weird lines, but did it close the gap? Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say before, like that was the closest I had gotten, because I was saying it drew this type of pattern. And like right here, they lined up. It closed the gap there. But then, for instance, like, you know, this section, these are raised sections. Here is lined up. But then here is like completely off. And then like, this section is like kind of gradually tapering away. Is what happened. Can I just do that by doing the alpha greater than 1? I forget. What the hell is happening here? Oh, and I was doing that, so let's get rid of that and go back to what I was doing. I think I understand why the gap is happening now. I think it's because I'm including values I shouldn't be, and it's because my distance is not my distance denominator is not correct. Is this the right one? Okay, so this is an example of the pattern I was talking about, but this one is also not lining up. If I did chunk size, when I divided by chunk size rather than the max distance chunk, is that where it started lining up? Because then the edges wouldn't be taking into account the corners. Hello? Why do you think the gaps are happening though? If you have the answer for me, I would be greatly. What's happening here? Just restart that. Wait. Yeah, that's fine. Why does that all of a sudden not want to work? What the hell did I do? Why is dividing by chunk size so bad here? I mean, I think the same thing happened whenever I... Let's do max distance to chunk, and then I have get closest chunks. We'll do the closest to chunks. Yeah, this is like the worst of all worlds, isn't it? That's not gonna make a difference, is it? That's not gonna make a difference. I don't know why I thought it would. But for some, when I do chunk size, it's not. Okay, let me see what you're saying here. When you use all the neighbors, think about the middle intersection point on your diagram. Directly to the right of that point, the far right chunk is a neighbor, and suppose, for example, that is a high altitude chunk. Directly to the left of that point, to the far right chunk, is no longer an... Hang on, I gotta read that again. Okay, going back to the diagram. Okay. Directly to the right of that point. Yeah, so you're saying like this. The far right trunk is a neighbor. Suppose, for example, that is directly to the left of that point. Wait. We're talking about this. Far right trunk is a neighbor. Yeah, right here. Directly to the right of that point. Directly to the right of that point. The far right chunk. Oh, are you just talking about why it drops off? Like you're talking about like why the pattern is getting drawn? Or do you just mean like a point on this side of the line versus that side of the line? And so let me show you this. So I have max distance to chunk, right? Which is, I'll build this. And so this is going to use, hang on, I have to use all the neighbors. So this is selectively getting rid of the neighbors that are too far away. This will essentially only ever grab like the closest 2 or 3 chunks. Because then alpha, max distance to chunk, ooh no, because I'm doing to each one, right? Oh no, this is when I was using, what number am I looking for here? Chunk size? Max dist. I've done so many different things here. Empty, that's not good. Not a number, not a number. Okay, yeah, that's bad. I mean, even when I was just using the... Look, I'll do closest 2 chunks, max distance. Right, so that way, that doesn't matter. Even me closest 3, why not closest 3? Wait. Max distance to chunk is the distances between the 2 chunks. So yeah, that actually would have been. So doing this would be, but I mean I'm getting the closest one anyway. So okay, hang on. I don't need to use the I'm retconning myself here. So I don't need to use the closest chunks because max distance to chunk is the distance between the 2 chunks, which is you know, that or that or that, right? And so when something is right here and we're considering this chunk, the distance is farther, the alpha is going to be over 1, and so we continue, we don't do anything with it. And so even when I do that, it's still not correct. And so we'll look at here are the weights that got added, so it's picking like the closest 3. And so we are considering what chunk are we on? So I'm on chunk 00, whose altitude is 0.48. I'm using the vert on the top left corner, and the weights that I got from that are from the chunk directly above it, which is 0.46. The lerp between the 2 values was 0.46. And lerping between the current chunk and the neighbor chunk for the chunk on the left was 0.49, and for the chunk to the top left is 0.45. And so I add all those up. I add all those up here, and then I divide by however many there are. And let's see what that outputs. Because I'm pretty sure this is what I... Oh my god. Garbage collection. So yeah, that's where this pattern is coming from. And it's still slightly... I don't know, some iteration I had where like it would line up. Like right here it would line up. I forget. And I think maybe I did divided by chunk size. Is that what I did to get it to line up there? Okay, yeah, that's what was failing for some fucking reason. I don't know. So that's why I think I need to... No, you are not bothering me. You are helping me think through this. Yeah, the pattern makes sense to me too, because that you are right in that is where it suddenly stops considering one of the chunks. But like I was saying, there was some iteration of this where it had the exact pattern that I was showing you. It was more drastic. I'll say that. It was more drastic. But there was like a small little section, maybe just a handful of vertices that lined up. So there's some knowledge there, and I think what's happening is like the gaps are happening because we're weighting certain things too much, and I don't know what those certain things are. It might be this. I think it may be because we're weighting this too much, and we weren't weighting it too much here, because right here it should just be these two, and so like this one and then the ones next to it probably just looked very, very close and indistinguishable to the human eye, correct? Because that was the only section where this was weighted properly, and it was only weighted properly because this value right here was the same as what I'm doing here, with how I'm calculating it. It would have output the same thing. But it doesn't for all these other points in between that. So that's why I think this is what I need to do here. But I'm just like sitting here like, I don't want to write all this freaking code. Especially if I don't know if it's what's going to work. Actually, ignore my answer. Calcs the vector from center of a rectangle to work for any point within the rectangle. Alright, Tom Sergadaz. Let's say the rectangle is defined by x1, y1, x2, y2. Let's say the ray starts at px, py. Okay, so we are going to need to do some angles here. So this can happen outside of that loop. Let's block out some space here. Okay, what is Vx? I assume that's a float. It's all going to be floats, right? Vx equals Fmath cosine. Do I have a cosine? Okay. Cosine of angle. Fuck. Okay, I don't have an angle. What do I... And so how would I get the angle between 2 points? Maybe I should read the whole solution here before I start. Traveling a distance of t along the ray will bring you to the point traveling along the ray. We hit the left wall when that happens, we hit the right wall when the correct value of t is the smallest positive one. Oh my god, dude, this is like so much. This is so mathy. You know, I have a friend who has a master's in mathematics. Maybe I should call him up. Yeah, I don't know. Is there some Unreal Engine way that I can do this that's like, I mean, I don't know. I would have to do like a raycast for every single vert. Like, would Unreal Engine hate me for doing that? I think it would hate me. I don't think it would. I think that would be incredibly unperformant. Dude, this guy gave me some code. MVP right here. It's fucking Python though, so. The polar equation of a rectangle. How's the terrain, Jin? We've reached a very difficult problem. And that is how to blend altitudes between chunks. Each chunk has an altitude value that should represent what its centermost vertex, what its altitude is. And we're trying to blend between, for each vertice, for each chunk, blend between all the neighboring chunks' altitudes. And we're getting some results that are not lining up. I wish that was Python. Was it not? Oh, was it Visual Basic? I just saw this and I was like, wait, is this Python or no? It's been so long since I've written any kind of Python. Bival, yeah, that looks like Visual Basic or some shit. Yeah, I think it might be Visual Basic, which is kind of a weird way to answer in a math forum. Or maybe it's like MATLAB or some shit like that. I calculate a vector from center of square to edge based on radius and an angle. So if I just get the angle, I should be able to use this, right? So how do I get the angle between 2 points? Between 2 points, not vectors. Wait, isn't the angle gonna change based on what my coordinates are? Because Unreal Engine coordinates are not in the same format as like math coordinates traditionally. Bro, some of this stuff is so over my head right now. I forgot that Unreal has a different coordinate system than literally any other piece of software. I know, right? And like when I originally created my terrain system, I was following a tutorial that was in Unity, and so I wrote it kind of backwards or upside down, where y north is in the negative y direction because the coordinates in Unity are flipped. So that's something I have to fucking go back and refactor, and I probably should do that soon before I write too much shit that relies on that. But yeah, that has bitten me in the ass. Bro, I can't read these answers. Yeah, dude, this all depends on like the coordinate system and shit. Oh my god, this is gonna be such a pain in the ass. Hang on, let me see something. Vector bounded to box. What is that function a part of? Oops. I suppose it would help if I searched for it myself. Vector bounded to box. Kismet Math Library. Get a copy of this vector clamped inside of the specified axis aligned cube. What does that fucking mean? It's saying cube, so I don't think that that's... Although I guess I could just make the z's the same. But like it would just take a vector that exists outside the box and make it to one that exists in the box. Oh, I just want a clean, easy answer. Project point inside. I'll say rectangle to edge from center. Yeah, I mean, if I can get that angle, I guess it's not going to be too hard. I just have to make sure that... yeah, in Unity 3D, I had to swap cosine and sine. Oh my god, it's going to be so painful to write this. I'm being loud and my girlfriend is trying to work on homework, so I just shut my door. Sorry, babe. God. See, that's the shit that I'm just not gonna understand. Will I be searching for this for an Unreal Engine? Finding distance to edge of a plane in direction from center. That's kind of the same question? Dude, I've seen this guy so much on the forums. I had to head out because my database query is almost done. Good luck. I know that pain, man. I know that pain. Hopefully you can finish your query and it's correct this time. But yeah, thanks for stopping by and working through me with that. I appreciate it. Can write the equation of a circle in vector form in polar coordinates, where r is the radius of the circle. I have no idea what polar coordinates are. Is that what I'm looking for? What are polar coordinates of a rectangle? Represent a point on a coordinate plane using the distance from the origin and its angle on the circle. Okay, that's tangential to what I want, I think. I don't think that's exactly what I want, because I need, like, to the edge. The orientation is z up, a constant we can zero out. Line extent, box intersection. Bro, not even the Unreal Engine docs have this function. Is that even a fucking function? Yeah, I guess there's gonna be no getting around. I'm gonna sit down now. My feet hurt. Okay, come on down. Yeah, I guess there's gonna be no getting around having to use like the angles and stuff. Unreal Engine, find angle between, I guess it would be get angle between vectors. Between 2D and 3D. Find a look at rotation? I mean, I need an angle, right? I mean, can I use find look at rotation? Go in. Kismet's not material, math library. Find a look at rotation between two vectors, which is going to be chunk chord 3, no, world chunk location, to world vert location, and so this gives me an F rotator. How do I like transform this to degrees or radians? I mean, it needs to be in reference to some sort of axes, right? Didn't I do something like this? I use dot product between last target angle, which is a vector, and camera look rotation, which is another vector. I forget what dot product is. It's like the difference between two angles or something like that, right? How do I do that in Unreal Engine? A cosine. Okay. Okay. We have something. We have something. What are that? Thing. I don't know what to call this. F math A cosine. The inverse cosine of F vector dot product. Is dot the same as dot product? Hang on. Okay, we'll use dot. World chunk location, world. Oh, what was this? What was this? Copilot, have you figured out what I'm trying to do here? Oh, okay. That was the non-static version of it. That makes sense. And then divided by the magnitude which is the size. Okay, so Copilot actually freaking figured out what I was doing here, which is crazy. That is crazy. I'm not actually convinced this is what I need. This question is making me rethink it. It's easy enough to find, so this is finding the angle between vectors? Is that what I want? The arc cosine of the dot product will give you the angle between two vectors. I mean, is that the same as what I'm doing here? So, I need the angle between 2 points. Is that any different? Is that any different? Pythagoras? What is... Okay, what is he doing here? What did the other guy have? Wow, Copilot. Oh, you were amazing. You were amazing at math, Copilot. Okay. Is that what I want? And then I think I would want plus 180. It's going to be angle center to vert. Okay, now that I have this, can I use some of these other ones? Okay, this is some C++. Hell yeah. Defined by because I forgot where it's declared. That's funny. Mommy told me that I shouldn't do computational geometry after 3 a.m. Okay, so I think we're gonna go with this, guys. Okay. Okay. What is F abs? What is fabs? Is CPP, what is fabs? Is it just absolute value? It stands for floating point absolute value. Okay. Good, good, good. This needs to be a sign. And what is he doing here? The center of the rectangle is actually x plus. So what is this doing? Width divided by 2. Height divided by 2. Is that just the center? Do I need to do that in mine? Oh, there's some shade getting thrown in these comments. I wouldn't actually do this in real life since it's much easier to just calculate the intersection with an edge of a general polygon times some scale. If I just do that, should I just do... Wait, what? That just blew my mind. Oh my god, that's going to be so much simpler. Unreal Engine, unit vector between 2 points. What was it? Get unit direction. Wait, where is the U Kismet math library? What was it in? Get direction unit vector from world chunk location to world vert location, and then I'm just going to multiply that by, right? You just scale it, which is how which was what did that guy say? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Times some scale that you're determining from the center. And if I just multiply that by like max distance, would that give me that's direction, and then so I should create like some sort of Unreal Engine rectangle. I do it with an F box. Okay, this is promising, and I think I'm going to do this. But it is time for me to get off tonight. Let me just write down some quick thoughts. Direction, to do box. Find where direction intersects with chunk bounds box. Okay, and so I will be taking care of that tomorrow. Phoenix, I know you're not here, but huge thank you to Phoenix for working with me through that problem. That was actually super helpful. And to the rest of you, thank you all for stopping by, and